All right. Welcome, everybody, to week one of June 2022. This month is going to be really fun for us because we are doing tertiary forms and details sculpting on the base that we created last month. As a little recap for last month, we talked about how the landmarks of the human face, the anatomy of the human face, specifically external. We talked about how to use anthropometry and, even more importantly, how to measure so that we can have full confidence as we build. Taking a lot of the guesswork out of the sculpting process was the main goal. And we were able to build our little heads from scratch. A lot of us used the same reference, some of us did not. At the end of every month on this workshop, we do a little voting poll for you guys to decide what the next month is going to be. To my surprise, tertiary shapes and detailing, specifically of the human head, won this month. I thought that the crochet of the human torso was going to win, which is really was unexpected for me. Um, so that's what we're going to be doing today. I actually will be using the same head that I made last month, and everybody who's here should have access to that inside of my Google Drive. All right, the one that I shared already in the Wednesday workshop chat. You can use either the one from last week or the one from this week that I just shared. There are very minor differences. One of the differences being that I added just block out eyebrows. And I changed the shape of the eye slightly because I found that I couldn't really use the reference we were currently using in order to do tertiary details and detailing. Like, you can't use that, right? So instead, I found us some better reference, something like this, and I just decided to create a little bit of a better base to sculpt on. We will be starting by discussing tertiary forms and then kind of how to make that happen, especially around the eye, nose, and mouth, but also how to break up the entire skin surface. Let me get my little notes open here. Okay, so a little bit of what we're going to be talking about this month and practicing. We're going to be talking about tertiary form, what it is in the first place, how to recognize it and set it up, tell it apart from primary and secondary, and even surface detailing, which is something that we'll be discussing actually today. How to keep your model clean and intentional looking, even at higher subdivisions, because now we are actually using higher subdivisions. We're really going ham on it, so to speak. I've given this base mesh that I have you downloading to subdivision 4, but it's pretty high poly. It's at 2,800,000, almost 3 million. We're going to discuss like some techniques and strategies to keep that pretty clean. We're going to learn to look out for and understand skin flow, how the skin flows along the wrinkles, along the areas of high movement, detailing in general. And these are tips that you can take to basically any kind of sculpt. It doesn't have to be a human head at all. Later on the month, we'll be talking about how to create your own skin brushes that you can reuse or sell, which is something that I talk about in my mentorship a lot because a lot of people's goals is to be able to monetize their art career sooner. So one great way to do that is to always be building these assets that you can then sell, right? Pretty straightforward. So we'll be talking about like how to make an individual pour, how to make I'm gonna call it a smattering of pores, I guess. Wrinkles, scars, blemishes, moles, and more, both by just using like alphas and the extractor brush and a bunch of other things, sprays and things like that. How to apply the how to apply the texture detail in those brushes to the skin and how to do it properly. Oh, sorry. Using layers and morph targets, kind of to like add and subtract and soften and multiply. Like all this stuff is going to be covered later on in the month. We're going to talk about how to break up the general surface of the skin using surface noise, multiple types and techniques of surface noise, actually. Probably not in the way you think, unless you've already been in the workshop for a while. I think like 6 months ago I covered a similar thing. But it's not going to be what you think. And if we have time, at the very last week, if we have time, we will cover how to do the eyelashes and the eyebrows with fiber mesh, which is something that I almost never do, but it actually has a pretty high payoff when it comes to a sculpt like this. Like if you're going to like deck out a little human bust like this, it actually pays off a lot to add some eyebrows and some iris. Oh yeah, and the eye as well. So if I have time after all of that, and we start doing the eyebrows and the eyelashes, we'll also be doing the irises and eyeballs in general, kind of detailing them out. If we don't have time for that, at least I have a tutorial on that already. So a couple of announcements before we move on. First thing is that since this workshop today is kind of a natural continuation of last month's workshop, if you have it, send your files in to my email, all right, so that I can open them at the end and we can critique them. Let's just keep it continuous. However, if you're watching, or if you're one of the people that joined this month, I don't think they're here, but let's say they start today, they might be a little concerned because they didn't do last month, and that's okay. You can watch all the videos on our Notion website, get caught up, or just straight up start with my base mesh. Because it is the first month of the workshop, it is customary that I go over the rules and how it works. I'm going to try to make it really, really fast for you guys because there's nobody here live that needs it right now, but maybe you'll remember something. Okay? So, how does this workshop work? I'm going to just run through it. So, every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central, we get together. The topics are separated by month. Sometimes there's a little bit of blur between 2 months, just like this month. So, technically, the topic is brand new this month. It's tertiary details and detailing, but we are working off of a model that we made last month. If you don't want to use the model that you made last month, you can use any human model, okay? That you made in the past, that you were making for the mentorship, whatever. Okay, every month has a theme, and you get to help me decide the theme by giving your opinions and voting on the poll at the end of the month. All the projects are made from scratch, starting in the first week. I guess that is not true because this month we're starting with a base mesh. And we take each project to completion on the last week to get it portfolio ready. I'm going to skip this. Here are some examples of work we've done in the past. Gus has lovingly organized all of the videos and past files on our Notion site, and it's basically complete now, I think. So anytime you want to go back and like do the crochet, like learn about the fat pads on the face, like I have videos on all of that. We have like 100 videos by now. Okay. So just as a refresher, you send in your whips at the beginning of each workshop. Normally you guys wait until the last possible moment. I'm looking at you a little. Okay. Send your between sessions, you can send any questions or problems you have in the Wednesday workshop channel. If you're here in live and you have any question during my workshop, please feel free to ask. In fact, I'd highly, highly recommend it. And this is a reminder that needs reminding, right? Because a lot of people get a little shy about asking for help or asking me to repeat a step while I'm going through the workshop. Don't be, okay? It's your responsibility to stop me and let me know if I've been unclear or if you need a little time, okay? You don't need to actually follow along with the workshop, but some people do. Please let me know, okay, if something's wrong. I'd rather you interrupt me than all the way at the end we both find out that you missed basically all the instructions. But let's say that that is the case. You don't have to worry. As you know by now, I record of your workshop and they will be posted within 24 hours on our website. All of my files are yours to use if you're not using them for the workshop. Anything that you download off my Notion page is for you forever. You can use it in future projects or whatever. I really don't care. Okay? So, as usual, we'll be using PureRef for our reference. And if you're doing a project that isn't exactly the same as mine, make sure to send me your PureRef as well for critiques. Okay? And all demos will be done in the latest version of Zbrush, and renders are done in Photoshop. Sometimes, like for example, when we did the hair, some of you guys weren't on the latest version of Zbrush and we had to adapt. It's okay, just please let me know, okay? Don't forget to come to the party at the end of the month, and basically participate in any challenges we might do and get early access to tutorials and just participate in the community. The little rules are very simple. Just remain professional at all times and keep your microphone muted unless you're about to speak. Don't keep it muted all the time, just when you're not actively trying to participate in the topic. Okay, that way we avoid hearing little background sounds and things like that that we don't want to hear. And don't forget that not only are we being recorded, but also today we are live on Twitch, I think. So, um, yeah, beware of what you say. At the end, I will stop recording and stop streaming. And if you'd like, we can have any more conversations at the end of every workshop. As you know, I do give a lot of time for questions and a lot of time for like extraneous topics about the industry or whatever. Okay, so let's get my little notes up here. Okay, so we have this little model right here. I would say that this has not gone farther than secondary forms. Can anybody remind me what primary and secondary forms are? As soon as I asked the question, somebody left the chat. Anybody? Tara, how about you? You've been here a few months. Oh, you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Shoot. Yeah, now it works. Hmm. Yeah, I'd say so. So if I were to put it in terms of like making a house, the primary forms would be the foundation, right? And no matter how much work we do on putting down little pores and scratches and scars, if the foundation does not look good, nothing will, right? It's like that saying, you if you put sprinkles on a turd, it doesn't make it ice cream. We're gonna live that right now, going through our forms. As a little reminder, it is extremely important to develop the discipline of being able to work up from the primary forms with a low poly model, focusing on the general proportions and the silhouettes, big shapes, big foundational shapes of the model, right? If I saw, um, let's say, what would be a good example? Like, what's that blue monster from Monsters Inc.? That guy, far away. I wouldn't see all the individual little hairs on his body or like the little cracks on his lips. No, I would see the general shape and how the shapes interact with one another. So that's why we use the squint test to kind of like squint at our reference, like that. And then whatever's left is what we'll do. So I would, for example, put in the roundness of the head, etc. Secondary is going to be breaking that down. Secondary forms is when the anatomy really starts to come through. And then tertiary is going to be the further form breakdown from the secondary. Okay, it is not to be confused for like surface detail. Surface detail, it doesn't really change the 3D nature of the shapes that are on that it's on top of. So if I were to put little pores and stuff on the cheek, this cheek would still have the same exact structure in 3D space with like minor little noise on top of it. That's tertiary details. Fine lines, pores are I'm sorry, that's surface detail. So fine lines and pores are surface detail. Tertiary details will be the kind of like the further breakdown. So if I look at this reference here, and I squint my eyes a little. So as we go along the hierarchy of form, we're going to reduce the amount of squinting that we're going to be doing. I'm going to look at it with a little bit of a squint, which in my case, like I've been wearing glasses lately, so like I barely have to squint at all. And I'm going to see this nice lines. They're coming through in my squint. That's breaking up form. But when I squint, I don't see all the little tiny little bumps and lumps and pores of the little skin, right? I maybe see a mole or two, but I'm going to kind of try to bring those in. So for today's resources, we're going to be using Dam Standard 2 from Damien Canderle. Canderli. I'm so sorry, Damien. I'm so sorry. Basically, it's a nice, sharper, more tiny Damien Standard that just goes perfectly in on those wrinkle lines. It's just going to be mwah, perfection. It is free, however, you can type in a price. So give it a shot and give him a donation if you like it. 2. Daniel Bushung's library of faces. So this guy has a library of like hyper high definition human heads. So what I did was I picked one that kind of worked with the man that I was already sculpting. I picked this guy. You just hit zoom in. Wait for it to load. It can take a second. I think I have it open somewhere else too that I could just use. Oh my goodness. I guess we're the dream is dead here. Let's try a different one. There we go. So on the surface, it looks like a normal everyday image, but if you zoom in, you'll start to realize that it's actually like really high definition. You can get in on anything on this person's face if you want to. You can tell apart every little piece of skin and fur. The other guy even had a little pimple on his lip that we could make. This guy actually has like nice, like smooth skin. I guess he has some like blackheads or something that you could put in your model. This reference is absolutely bonkers, high definition, really good to work with. Okay, so please use this. This is a huge reason of why I changed the eye shape on our model so that I could probably apply this guy's kind of eye tertiary forms to my model. So there it is. There we go. This is the guy I picked. So what we can do is we can open up our PureRef once you have yours selected. And I know a lot of people aren't doing the same exact model as me. So just go on the site and find the next best one that kind of matches the shapes and the kind of detailing you're trying to get on your model. And then we're going to zoom, zoom, zoom and get some really nice high definition screenshots. I'm just using the kind of the automatic screenshot tool on my computer. And now I can just paste it straight into PureRef right there. Look at how much we can see. This is where what I was talking about. He has this like little blackhead on his lip. We can even see some burst capillaries. Like, isn't that insane? Moisture on the lips. You can kind of already see this phenomenon called sticky lips, which is something that you've definitely heard of if you are a rigger. That our lips naturally kind of stick to each other. So when we open our mouths, they kind of. Oh, Rita's here to add some sticky lips knowledge. The mouth opens and the lips unstick from each other. You can see them sticking. It's just great reference, really widely used by character artists. So if you weren't using it before, please do so. I feel like I could like diagnose this guy with a melanoma like from here. Okay. And last, it was the site that wasn't working. I'm going to fix that link for you guys and then give it to you at the end of the workshop. All right. It was literally just the Sketchfab link to the original man that we used as reference for this. Okay, he was just a 3D scanned man. Oh, let me go back and get some references of the nose skin. The nose we're going to leave for last because if we run out of time, it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to be very repetitive from that moment on. So I'm going to start by kind of selecting the face, looking at my little eye reference, and we're going to start by the eyes because I think the eyes are the biggest challenge, and then we're going to move on to the mouth for today's demo. Okay, if we have time, we'll do the nose as well. Literally pulling up my sleeves, moving everything out of the way. So we're going relatively high poly. At this point, when I look closely to the eye area, I don't want to see too many polygons. You see them a little bit, but not too much. This is probably fine density. Again, I'm at 3 million polygons just for the head. If your computer has trouble running higher poly densities, one way to do it is to just kind of turn it to the side, Control Shift, select the area that you're going to work in. Okay, and that will kind of help with the lagging of working through too many polygons all at once. Next, we're going to just get in there, and literally there's no real trick to this besides really try to keep it very, very clean. I'm going to reset my dimming standard so that we can set it up together. I'm using the normal one. We're not using the new one yet. So the normal dimming standard is more 3D. The newer dimming standard is more tiny and like fine line-esque. We will be using them in unison, but we're going to be focusing the most on a normal dimming standard for now. So as usual, we're going to make it nice and pointy by bringing up the focal shift. I like between 60 and 80, and then I'm going to turn down the Z intensity, test it out. This just makes it, I don't know, sharper and much nicer to work with. Very first thing I'm going to do, besides making my PureRef a little bit bigger, is I'm going to redefine the waterline. So the waterline is almost like a 90-degree angle. There's going to be a lot of little hairs that are the eyelashes coming out from the exact 90-degree angle line. But until then, until we have that, we're just going to redefine it. So you guys know how much work I can get done with just Demian standards. So let's go for it. I'm going to invert it and then kind of gently with like continuous strokes. But I'm not going to try to make it too continuous because like otherwise my hand starts shaking and like things like that. So I'm just going to kind of make little strokes that all go along the curve that I'm trying to create. I'm going to look at it from different angles, make sure that everything is working, and then just do that. Kind of define that lash line, define that tear duct right there. Same thing for the top, even though the top is already pretty defined. Here's what's important. You guys know me, I'm all about maintaining kind of control over the mesh. That's kind of what my whole workshop is about. So if you can't pull off this kind of line without making it wobbly or having like crossover moments like this, do not worry, don't judge yourself. Just go up here to stroke, lazy mouse, and then turn up the lazy radius, and that will help you kind of be able to make more, I guess, continuous, straighter lines or better curves. The higher you put your lazy radius, the better for like the smoothness of the line. However, it's really hard for like little details because it won't even apply until you've reached that radius. So use it with like mindfully, I suppose. I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off. Not really off to 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to continue defining. So basically the idea is we're really going to get in here and we're going to look at all these little shapes. We're going to use our Demian standard to really get in here and create these like nice clean folds of skin or skin where the skin ends and begins. So I'm kind of really creating this line here. I can hear a lot of sounds. Can you guys hear that? Is my mic picking up weird sounds today? I'm using okay. Thank you guys for letting me know. So I'm kind of just really defining in this moment. We're just getting really close in here and defining the lines, defining the skin folds. We're going to be using a lot of masking today, but right now we're just kind of freehanding it all. And this is just going to create way more definition. You can already kind of zoom out and see. If you learn one thing from today, it is that no matter, I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the sounds. I think there's like a party outside or something. Great timing. Um, so, what was I saying? Oh yes, if you're going to learn one thing today, it's that a lot of these tertiary forms and details are going to be created while you're like way zooming right in, we're super close up to the mesh. Do not fall for the trick or like for the I guess don't fall for the trick because you have to always be zooming back out and assessing the impact of your work on the overall piece. I can't tell you how many times me and a ton of other artists will come in here and like work on this one little bit for hours, right? Then we zoom out and we realize that either it's too busy or not busy enough, or the details are too small compared to everything else, or it doesn't match the style. Like it can go wrong in probably 1,000 different ways. So build that habit of always zooming out and assessing the whole piece as one. This goes in the same vein as my usual rules for the workshop, which is when we're sculpting something, we always want to be rotating. We still always want to be rotating as we're doing our tertiary forms, because even a Demian standard, a simple Demian standard line might look different from different angles. For example, it might look really well defined from one angle, but then like I guess in this case, it's not, it's looking pretty defined from every angle. But from a different angle, it might not be. Or from a different angle, it might be warped or something like that. So please always be checking your work. Let's zoom back into the little eyes. And I'm going to kind of already think about, see that double skin fold? Let's try getting that in here. By the way, the mesh I sent you has like poly groups for the top eyelid if you need it. They're a little bit jaggedy, but they still help. So I'm going to try to get this little fold in here just using Damien Standard. I always make my Damien Standard pointier than you think it needs to be and wider than you think it needs to be. That way it will get the most 3D results. And it really matters in the end. So we can go ahead and continue. I think I went a little too far with that. Always referring back and forth to your reference as much as you possibly can. And sometimes I might go a little bit too strong on my definitions, and that's okay. I can just smooth it. Since we are at a higher resolution, smoothing doesn't really go as far as when you're in a lower subdivision, but fret not. You can just press Shift D to go down a subdivision or two and give it a little bit of a smooth. Okay, and then do that as necessary, kind of get more organic results. Okay, I really like the way that tiny little fold looks. So we were really getting in there. The topology, it's been Z-remeshed already in the past, so it's not fighting with us too much, although there is a problem, and we can get into this during future workshops. But you see these poles? This one here in particular is causing pinching in that area, which is why topology is so important. A lot of 3D modelers will Z-remesh, or I'm sorry, retop by hand before finishing the sculpt. I used to not do that. Now I'm starting to think that I should. So I'm being converted to the dark side little by little on that. So let's get back in and let's discuss, for example, the little wrinkles and folds on the bottom of the eye. Then get in there. I'm going to make my Damien Center always a little bigger than I think it needs to be. It's counterproductive, but or counterintuitive, but it really does give you good results. So try it, even if it doesn't sound good. In fact, I would recommend that you try just about everything in this workshop as prescribed, and then later, if you don't like it, add your own little flair to it. But normally, I've had really good results if you just follow the prescribed steps. Like things turn out pretty okay, pretty good, good even. So I'm just kind of coming in here with my Damien Standard. If I need to, I'll come in with the stroke and the lazy radius. And here's an important step to making wrinkles, okay? So it's a little overly defined, I'd say, because I've done it so many times. Let's go on do a few times. Maybe do like one definite wrinkle here. One thing to note when you're doing a wrinkle, let's just add a random one to the cheek, is that first things is that Damien Standard normally leaves kind of a U-shaped dent at its start and end. I don't know if you guys can see, but look at the little tiny bit of light being caught all the way at the bottom of my screen. For me, as a rule, I always smooth out the beginning and the end of the wrinkle or the line, be it for cloth folds or whatever. Like, there's 1,000 different scenarios. I almost always smooth the beginning and end just to avoid that weird catch of the lights and also to make it look more natural and more like it belongs on the piece. So I'm going to just undo that whole wrinkle and then kind of do it again. Always thinking about where it starts and where it ends. And then going a little past where you want it to end. And then a little bit of smoothing on both sides. Goes quite a long way. And you can see that even with these tiny, tiny little changes, we're already getting a little bit more of organicness, a little bit more of even personality to our model, which is kind of a little bit of a good thing, right? Because before the model was looking so bland and boring, and this is a huge thing about tertiary forms. Tertiary forms also help you define tension and directionality in the piece, like in the skin, in the cloth, whatever. And it also helps you define like what the surface is made of. Like think about like the surface tertiary details of a tree trunk versus a human face. So I'm going to come in here and kind of get the really big ones in. because they will kind of provide a guideline and a landmark for the little ones. If you weren't here last month, then I would redefine what a landmark is. Actually, can one of you guys do it for me? I'm so tired. What is a landmark and why do we care? Does anybody remember from last month? Nobody? How about Santiago? Yeah, no, that's basically it. That's basically it. So basically, we define areas of importance, right, on the subject that we are creating. In this case, the head. So, for example, we use the pupils as one landmark, the different fold, like deep tissue folds of the face, like the nasolabial fold, as a landmark, and then we use those as almost like spots on the map so that we can tell if all of the other proportions are right because we needed to measure we need to measure everything, right? And every I'm going to tell you guys a thing that I say every workshop, like every Wednesday, which is like all scale is relative, right? Like I'm big when it comes to looking at a mouse, but the earth is big compared to me, but the earth is small compared to the sun. So like what we have to do is use units of measurements and always be comparing. And the landmarks help us do that. So I'm going to turn my character like way up, look right up into his nostril. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the Damien standard and we're going to just shoot it up right into that crease to create more of a gravity feel from the front. Always be checking the front. The shadow is a little dark. You can actually update the material if you go to material modifiers. Um, and you can make the ambient a little bit less dark, like this. Although it's still a little dark, you can also go to light and I believe turn up the ambient light, and that should also help a little bit as well if you need to. Okay. Then I'm going to come back in here, get a nice nostril shot, and then just kind of push all of that in. It's really subtle. I like working in like an additive approach. You guys know this by now. I think I forgot an important step. Did anybody tell me what stuff I forgot? Those of you who have been here a while and know. I forgot to do layers. So I'm naming. I mean, I already named. Actually, not everything's named. You have a good point. Let's name. No, it's more about um, the layers. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of these details that I'm doing on a layer. It's important that you remember before you start. It's hard to put something on a layer after you've already done it. So I'm just going to add a layer and call it Tertiary details. If you're following along, go ahead and stop what you're doing, add in a little layer. It takes no time at all. And now everything we do is going to be stored in a layer. As a little layer refresher, everything. Oh shoot, I had the eye selected. I'm not trying to do tertiary details on the eyes right now. Little layer refresher. Everything you do will be stored within the layer, so you can while you're recording. So you can stop recording, turn the layer on and off, and that will go away. You can turn the layer intensity down so that it becomes more subtle. I don't know if you guys can even see that. Or you can even invert it, and then it will literally invert everything you've done. It's pretty neat, if I do say so myself. However, There are a few rules you need to know when you're using layers. The main one is that once you start using layers, it's best to continue using layers and making it sure that it's really organized. So tertiary details, they should all go in this layer, unless you want multiple layers for that. But once you start putting in like pores and things like that, you need a new layer for that. Okay, we're going to be talking a little bit more about how to erase things from layers and use them in more detail in the future weeks. But right now, we're just kind of pushing along with our little primary forms, creating a little bit of the sensation of weight over that top lid. One thing you can do is grab the move brush to create a little bit more weight. Select that top lid, soften that mask. If you soften it on a lower subdivision, it will soften much better. Then you can come back up here, and I'm going to just kind of first smooth out this top like part of skin and fat right here. Then I'm going to grab my move brush and just move it down towards the eyelid. That way we're going to basically make that crease a lot tighter and neater. See right here, like we got a really nice tight crease. We're just moving it towards the eyelid, always rotating. You guys see how like even though I'm working from this angle, I'm pushing, 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 pushing. Then I'm looking at it from straight ahead. Then I'm going to grab the same brush, move brush, and I'm going to just press down Alt and pull. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to just give us a little bit more mass in the top part of the crease. Not too much. I think I've taken it a little far. Tightening things up. Give it a little smooth up here. If weird things happen to the eyebrows, don't worry, we'll be replacing them if we have time. Like much, much better eyebrows. And we won't be doing, for example, the little pores and breakups of the surface yet. So right now we're literally just kind of fleshing out all of these bigger forms of the eye. You don't have to just use Damien Standard. It's just kind of a habit I have. And I definitely recommend, using the Damien Standard to create these nice cuts. But again, it doesn't need to be just the Damien Standard. For example, if I need a little bit more mass here falling into this crease, I'll come in here and create a little mask as carefully as I can. You guys know what I always say. Time spent masking is never time wasted. Make it as clean as you possibly can. I always like to invert it to check because normally for some reason I can see better my mistakes when it's inverted. You guys see that? Just kind of cleaning up a little. We want it to be as continuous as possible, especially where we're trying to create the crease. Once we have that, maybe we soften it a little bit, invert, and then what we can do is come here with the move brush. Actually, I think I'm gonna not invert and just push upwards in this area right underneath the crease, and this should create a nice, super nice crease for us. So I'm going to just unmask and check, always checking, kind of like looking at the big picture of things. Just as important in ZBrush sculpting as it is in anything else. And then kind of we have a much cleaner crease. Like I love like being able to put in a clean line on the models if you need it more volume up above. That save. Okay. Then we're just going to add a little bit of volume using the same trick of the move brush with the alt press down. And there we have it. Okay, so basically just have fun with it. Like this should be one of the most fun parts of your sculpt, in my opinion. So definitely like don't be shy. If you're using a layer, you literally can do no wrong. And that's like probably one of the most important parts of the layer in the first place is that it provides you so much freaking peace of mind. At least for me, like, if you mess up, whatever, just turn off the layer. The end, you know? So We're going to come in here. I'm going to kind of add a little bit more of the breakups of the top lid. Mainly just this line. I don't know if you guys can see that. And go ahead and add that in. Break up that bottom line here. I think it kind of splits into two if I'm not mistaken. And a highlight a lot of the creases. Now that the big crease is more defined, all the other creases are basically invisible. So we can come in here and we can kind of do the same for them. So get your mask on. Again, the cleaner you can make your mask, the better everything else will be. So please don't feel like this is a waste of time. I know so many people that don't like to spend time masking. Like, don't worry about it. I'm one of those people, actually. Then we're going to soften, invert, and then push up from underneath. Check constantly. Trying to be able to see it. And if there's a little chink in the line, basically, try not to worry too much. We can just kind of, first off, we're going to smooth the edges and then grab the move brush and just straighten that out. Necessary. I'm going a little stronger than I normally would, but it's mostly for you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. I personally prefer a more subtle approach, but it gets the job done very well, very easily. So just to refresh the method, so we're going in here with the Damian sander, we're defining where we want the line to go. Then a little bit of masking. Soften that mask, invert it, then very gently use your move brush, push it in. And get your lines and make sure to give it a nice old smooth. Check it from afar. I think that's a little strong, but you know, you can always use the smoothing at lower resolutions to kind of make it less 3D. So pretty simple process. Requires a lot of control though. It might require a couple of tries. Don't be afraid to really, like, once you're doing it, like, really tell yourself if it's looking nice, and if it's not, just hide the layer, start a new layer. Like, really, I don't want this to be a stressful week of workshopping. I just want this to be like a nice, pleasant week of workshopping, you know? So, the lips. We're gonna go through a very, very similar process for the lips. Okay, but we're probably going to use a little bit more, maybe a little bit more of a clay buildup. So we're going to come in here and we're going to, just as before, cut that lip crease. No mercy, just really nice. We don't have a poly group for the top lip or bottom lip, so now would be a great time to go ahead and make that happen. Just going to try my best to select the top lip without getting any of the bottom lip in there. Then let's turn in polyframe. Oh my god, that is the most aggressive polyframe I've ever had. Control W will turn. Is it not? Oh, I'm pressing Shift W, that's why. Control W will turn whatever you have masked into its own polygroup, which means it'll be a lot easier for you to use in the future because you can just come in here. Oh shoot, I need to mask one. Instead of masking it all over again, you can just Control Shift click that top lip, mask it, soften, and then there you have it. So I'm going to go down one or two subdivisions, soften it from here, then go back up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just like before, kind of create that better overlap between the two. I'm going to take that bottom lip and just push it up. Oops, as necessary. Same thing with the top lip. Now we have like a much cleaner, much more attractive line to work with. One of my many pet peeves in ZBrush sculpting is when we create a, I guess like a cavity or like a deep line. Let's pretend that that's the mouth line there. And I can see the inside of the line, and there's a little bit of a glimmer of light, just a little bit of a lighter color in that inside of that line. See that? I really dislike that. So this will actually just get rid of that completely for us. So now the line is actually like nice and just dark as you would expect in normal life. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some definitions to the outside of the lip. Who can remind me what the outside of the lip area is called? But you guys didn't expect a vocabulary lesson today or a vocabulary quiz. Nobody? How'd that like last week? Okay, I'll just tell you. It's the vermilion border, remember? We memorized it because we've said that, I'm pretty sure anyway, this was me making stuff up maybe, but vermilion is just red. So the red border of where the skin of the lips ends and the skin of the rest of the face begins. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in here and I'm using my good old happy little demi standard to just kind of create the outside of the lips, that vermilion border, just a little bit of definition. We can always, again, just smooth. That's something I learned from Laetitia Gillette's presentation. One of them, where she does very stylized pieces, and she talks about how she always goes a little harder than she has to, and then after she smooths if she needs to. And I've been try that out, and it's been working pretty good so far. I'm going to come in here with the normal demi standard, just kind of pushing in from underneath. And you guys have to remember that it actually matters what direction you're looking at when you're modeling, right? Because with Zbrush, you're basically shooting a laser beam, basically, like for a lot of brushes anyway, the basic brushes, shooting like a laser beam from the camera, which is like us, to the model. So if I do it from here, it's going to shoot straight from us and create this 90-degree angle, versus if it comes from here, you'd actually create an indentation. So let me show you the difference. This from the front versus this from underneath. I don't know if I was able to recreate any difference, but sometimes it makes a difference. Oops. Really not a good example. We'll work on that. Digging in those corners. Pushing in this area up here. Smoothing. And again, we're just kind of creating more definition. Let's get the nasolabial fold defined, but like in a nice, smaller way. I don't have any good reference for that, but we can just use the guy. I guess not. We'll just use our imaginations for that one. But we already have the nasolabial fold defined, so I'm going to use the same exact method on this. So just kind of mask either the top or bottom as carefully as you possibly humanly can. Be really careful and cautious as you go over what you've already modeled. And this is probably one of the most important things, is that the form hierarchy, the The secondary forms have to respect the primary, and the tertiary has to respect the secondary. So you can't just like cross over something that you've already made. Make sure that as you're working, you're respecting the forms that have already been laid down. If you don't like the forms that haven't already laid down, like just change them. Don't sculpt over them in like a incompatible way. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, soften. It's probably too much softening. Grab my move brush and just like before, kind of create that crease. Get as nice as I can. Check. Might be a little strong and a little wobbly. It's okay. Probably gonna go down lower than I need to. I always smooth the ends anyway, so it's gonna be pretty soft in that area. Go down a few subdivisions, soften it up. And just kind of follow this pattern for all the areas that need to be redefined and things like that. Topology right here is not perfect. I might retopologize this whole head for next week and get you guys a new base mesh if I have time. For the little cuts in the lip, I definitely recommend turning off symmetry before you start fleshing them out, especially the closer you are to the center of the character, right? The closer we are to the center of symmetry, the more the easier it is to tell if we are using symmetry. So definitely try and turn it off. And oh my gosh, I think I used the wrong number. Okay, just turning off lazy mouse for a bit because I kind of want to do it more freehand. And I'm going to start by kind of coming in here and recognizing what the deepest little lines are. Just squint, like when in doubt, just squint and then start with the deepest ones. Coming in there. I think I need to turn the intensity down a little bit. And then smoothing out the ends of the line. In this case, I'm not going to smooth out the start because it's literally hidden inside of this crease. So I don't have to worry too much. I'm not doing a one-to-one replica today, like we kind of tried to do last month. So have a little fun with it. Try to make it feel natural. We're not doing all of these little details of the mouth because that will be applied with alphas and things like that later. We're really just doing the breakup with the shapes. I hope that is very clear to you guys. Give them different lengths and intensities to make it look even more organic and natural. And then do some like soft, subtle ones all along the lip to kind of help break up that kind of overly smooth shape a little bit more. Try to keep your strokes nice and continuous. That. And I'm just going to take a moment to kind of highlight where, then turn symmetry back on, highlight a little bit where that skin sags right here and kind of pulls. I'm going to do like a vertical line, kind of goes along the lip. We can add his little pimple in later, if that is a pimple. And just square out the lips a little bit. And then let's do the bottom, turning off symmetry again. Otherwise, it will get really repetitive. And like, you guys know this, but our brains are like supercomputers, specifically really good at pattern recognition, right? So if you accidentally make a pattern with your character, make sure it's intentional. That is the key word of literally everything in my workshop. Intentional. I know we know when we look at a piece and we can tell if a lump or a bump or a repetition is done on purpose or if it's an accident or an oversight. It's just kind of like a gut feeling, something about the artistic eye that can tell. I definitely recommend watching out for that kind of thing in your work. The nose area will be focused. Actually, I'm out of time. I'm gonna keep going a couple more minutes, but for the nose area, for the homework, focus mostly on the inside of the nostril, the area underneath it, and the area around, just like the ala area, I suppose, the tip a little bit. You're not going to do much else to the nose because unless your character is much older and they have big wrinkles that you've chosen, there's not a lot to add. And that's probably my parting words for you guys today is simple. Um, a lot of artists have a habit of overcomplicating anatomy. Like everybody just wants to make like the most decked out models, like with the muscles and the striations and the veins and everything else and the huge pores, right? And sure, is there a place for that? There is, especially like if you're doing like comic book characters like G.I. Joe style things or crazy anatomy studies. But for most normal recreations of like everyday average people, especially women, you're going to want to uncomplicate. If you don't see something in the reference, don't put it in just because you know it's supposed to be there. A lot of people memorize like all the different shapes of the face and the underlying structure and the anatomies and the bones, which is a really good thing to do. But if you don't see it on the reference, don't force it. You know, it's not there for a reason, be it because it's hidden under like fats or whatever, you know. So sometimes anatomy is just as much as about what you put in, but also what you don't put in. And those are the parting words for today. Let me check my inbox to see if anybody has submitted any work for critique today. This is the wrong inbox. Got Jeremy's head. 1 second while I download it. If you haven't yet and you have your head, make sure you send it to anna3dmentorships@gmail.com as usual. Then I'm going to open up the pure ref file. Let me actually make it a slightly darker color because the white is looking a little blown out. Is that better for you guys? All right, so I see that we have one new person here today now. Hello, new person. So for context, last month we did the anatomy of the human head, and then we had a vote at the end of the month about what this month's theme is going to be. They decided that they wanted to learn tertiary shapes of the human head and how to detail skin. So I let them turn in their assignments from last month today as well to give extra feedback as we move along to the next phase for them. But since you're here and you're new, you can start from the base mesh I've provided, or you can get caught up, which is going to be like probably like 5 hours of videos. So I definitely don't think it's mandatory at all. Um, anyway, so let's get started. The rules for critiques are very simple. You guys will critique it, and then I will. Who wants to go first? Nobody? I'm gonna pick one. Eric, I know you always participate. Are you here? I see that mic unmuting. Try saying something. I heard a little sound. It's like you're really far away. Well, we wait. How about Sean? Not Sean Squatch, the old Sean. Sean, are you here? Person.
Hi, I
Hi.
am Sean. I'm new.
Hi,
Uh,
Sean. How you
would you?
doing?
I'm okay. Just catching up on what you guys would like to hear for a critique. Not new to these, but new to I guess what kind of feedback we're given here today. I don't know how far into this project everybody else is, but I'm happy to provide any feedback.
So he's basically going to be have he's has done primary and secondary forms of this guy right here,
Okay, cool, cool.
and with a focus on proportion being the big thing.
I think proportions looking pretty okay. The fundamental aspects of it are there. Uh, I like the lips. I think it's a good starting place for the lips.
Yeah,
And
lips look nice.
probably, the eyelids on the top could use a little bit more definition, but I think that that's starting to get into tertiary forms rather than the basic forms. But I like it. How many hours is this in? This specific one?
Uh, I couldn't say in all honesty. I agree with you on the eyelids. I've got a topology issue on them that I need to fix first. They're not lining up properly. I need to Z remesh it
Okay.
until I get that because they're like bumpy. You can see it
Oh,
if you get close.
yeah. I definitely
Yeah.
recommend zero meshing before going any further on the
Yeah,
sculpt.
I I quit. I stopped working on it because of that. Because I was like, okay, I need to figure this out first
I
because
have
it's
a
causing me
video
problems.
on that in case you need to see it again. Also, it's in last week's workshop as well. If you need to go open the Notion page
Hmm.
and refresh your memory on how we did that.
Hmm.
Um,
I will double check that.
so yes, definitely the topology situation for the upper eyelid. It probably had you fighting at a disadvantage, so to speak.
Hmm.
So definitely
His
good
hooded
topology.
eyes make it hard.
Yeah, hooded eyes are a little hard to do, but you know what? Like you can pull it off in Dynamesh mode as long as you
Mm-hmm.
create groups. Okay, so if before you
Mm-hmm.
had made it too hooded, you had just put the top eyelid in its own poly group, it would make your life a million times easier. Kind of like how I have mine here.
Mm-hmm.
Because then no matter how much the top and bottom are like touching, you can still select one versus the other without having to like go through masking hell.
Gotcha.
um, okay. So I definitely like the mouth, the demi standard, the definitions. I think that right here inside of this area, it's a little sharp. I would probably soften that. It looks almost a little hard surfacey. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this model's coming along a lot further. The ears are probably the weak points. I would
Mm-hmm.
revisit the ears a little once again. First thing we're missing is like all of that depth from the ear.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that tutorial I put out for ears for you guys?
Yes. Yes.
So I feel like you got pretty far. It's just like it's not three-dimensional. Like when I look at it from
Mm-hmm.
here, like the all the indentation parts are very shallow. And I think that's probably where you could improve the most on this ear.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, I'm gonna create a little bit more definition. So I'm gonna come in here with this one little bug that's been here for a while. Come in here and just create more definition between the different parts. We got defined helix. Now we have a defined anti-helix. This part needs to be more defined as well. And then deepened. So I'm going to grab that move brush, always checking the back side to make sure that we're not ruining absolutely everything. I'm going to just mask this part, called the concha. This is how I say it. I'm pretty sure that's not how English speakers say it. Um, Mask basically the most deepest part of the ear. Soften that mask, invert, move brush, push.
Mm.
I'm pushing deeper into the head and also to the side so that it goes forward a little bit. The hole goes forward. It hides underneath. I forgot what this is called. Little area where everybody gets piercings. I taught this like last week. Something with an H, I think. Anyway, so we're just kind of deepening these, creating more contrast, and already I'm starting to get a little happier with it. You've like massively lost volume right here to the point where it's condensed down. Definitely try not to
Mm.
let that happen. Like if you actually feel your ear, like I can like put the whole tip of my finger in that little groove.
Mhm.
So you definitely need to create that space. You might need to actually smooth this out and try again. Um, just
Mhm.
follow the exact step by step from the video. It should help. Um, and then last thing is that the whole ear feels really straight back and forth, and like the beginning of the ear is almost like floating off the head. I would like really push this in, and then just
Mhm.
kind of do a pass in which I try to get that shape that he has in, and I think it's not that off. It's just kind of it's not three-dimensional. So when I look at it with perspective, the ears almost go away, and he has more
Yeah.
more visible ears than that. So I would try putting them in a little bit more. A little. I don't want to overdo it. There's something
Mhm.
about this area that's off to me. I think it's like if I were to see this guy's jaw. So like feel your jaw.
Mhm.
Feel the square corner of the jaw. Right here. It's right
Mhm.
here. It tends to be lower than the ear. Even though the jaw hinges
Mhm.
from underneath the zygomatic, underneath this cheekbone, they're still two that different things. If I were to like do a like almost like I'm gonna fill this with color so that I can paint on it. If I were to do like a scan of your character's face, I would get like cheekbones from here, okay,
Mhm.
cheekbones doing cheekbone things, then the jaw coming in up here, and then the square of the jaw there. So the jaw would be like teeth coming up way super high when it should probably be for this guy up around here. That should be the square part, and then come up straight.
Yeah. I could see that now.
So we can simply add more mass down here. Not a lot. This guy does have a pretty slender face, very
Mhm.
unique bone structure, and then kind of push this in. Let that cheekbone be cheekbony for the gods. This guy got nothing but cheekbones, right?
Mhm.
And without adding too much mass from the front, let's check the front. Make sure that it's still slender, but when we look at it from the side, we kind of can see that these are two different shapes together. This character will greatly benefit from asymmetry, but not yet. If you want to do asymmetry, make sure to put it in a separate layer. That way you can do all of the texturing that we're going to be doing this month with symmetry on. But yeah, like his
Mhm.
face is pretty like curved one way.
Yeah, his nose is like off to the right.
Last thing is that I think that the irises are
Mhm.
low on the eyeball. Like I'm getting
Mhm.
it. So let's zoom in here. See how we can see that the top of the iris is completely hidden by the top eyelid,
Mhm.
and then we can almost see white at the bottom, but not quite.
Mhm.
First thing is that the iris is too big, and then you should probably reorient it just ever so slightly, just to kind of have that effect. Where on the character you put, or where on the eye you put the iris, like indicates a lot to us about the character. We can
Mhm.
read facial expressions, right, and things like that, and it totally does matter to us where you put that stuff. So it's just another
Mhm.
moment of observation that is good to apply. Let me see if anybody else has sent. Yes, Eric has sent a mesh, so I'm gonna download that, and we're done with yours. Just keep applying. Oh, and
Thank you.
rewatch the video on the zero meshing and the one on the ear. I think the ear one will help. Um,
Yeah, I can redo that.
Can we hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Sometimes NVIDIA just decides
Hmm.
to make me quiet. Yeah, so I made this one for doing the details. It is the one kind of floating above. I included the reference folder or the reference image. Um,
Nice, nice. Mind if I hide in this little body here?
yeah, you can get rid of that. I don't need that. That was just for a height reference.
All right, who wants to go first? It's kind of a long, skinny reference board. I'm gonna put it down. Anybody wants to give a little feedback?
Um, so first off, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Hi.
So I think in general it's looking really good. The two things that jumped out at me were her nose. In the reference, especially the one that's like directly down and to the right slightly from the picture right now, or from the sculpt. It looks like she has more of like the little turned up button nose. Like there's more of a plane change between the tip of her nose and the bridge.
Let's check the side view. Yeah, I would say it's definitely more, if nothing else, like straight.
And then the other thing was also on the profile view. I think her, um, like the muzzle portion of her face is kind of sticking out a little too far.
Yeah. Actually, like if I were to fix it, I would probably push out the forehead eye area up here. Kind of mask out the muzzle area you were mentioning. Then soften that and just kind of would bring this whole thing out, checking out that line. Remember how we kind of, whenever we were doing the blockouts last month, we drew lines all over the place to measure. So the eyebrow can go almost straight down to the chin. Yeah, I think I might have to bring in the chin as well. Okay, I'm gonna leave that edit out because we'd have to edit like where the eyeballs are and all of that, but I think you get the point, right? That there's way too much of a difference between the top half of the face and the bottom half. Okay, next thing. So one thing I would say is that she's kind of suffering from like a certain squareness of the face. Specifically, let me fold this with color. Right here, there's like tends to be a certain like boxiness. There's definitely a line that goes here that's very, very straight. But when we look at her from 3/4, we can see that this area is actually pushed in a little, and then she has more cheekbones. Look at the contrast of the size here. I think that's very important to get this lady's essence, is to be able to get that shape of that silhouette. Like if I were to compare, like it's supposed to basically max out at the cheekbones here, like create more of a diamond shape. Um, I think once you fix the sloping of the face that will help. Ears look nice. This part definitely could use some inflate. It's the tragus, I think. General shape of the face, like yeah, from the front it's a perfect oval. From here it's kind of squarish, so definitely go for that diamond a little bit more. You might have to push this part back in to kind of create that contrast a bit more. Raise those brows if you need to. Sketch in where the brows are going to go. That can help quite a bit. Then let's see. The little nose, yeah, like this area of the nose is a little bit too strong on the model. Let's go back to before. I'm going to kind of fill it with gray again. It's just a little strong. I'm not sure. I think the nostrils might be a little too round, too top heavy. As Tara pointed out, the nose can definitely have more of a uplifted little tip. But all in all, like as far as the construction of like I've the neatness and the intentionality of it all, it looks really good. It looks like a really good model. I would just fix those things and really watch out for that size of that ear as well. I think the ear might be a little high or a little bit big as well. So just basically another pass for like more accuracy would be 10 out of 10. But other than that, she looks really nice. This is a really good. Who's this? Like, I want to sculpt her too. Very cute.
That her name is Aileen Weber. She's a Brazilian fashion model.
Okay, okay.
Oh.
That's most of her feedback. Any questions for today's workshop? No questions?
Nope.
Oh, nope. Okay. In that case, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to stop streaming and recording. Hello, everybody, if you've been watching. Um, and we can kind of have our own chit chats if we'd like, get to know our newest members, introduce ourselves. So I'm going to stop